One of our regular champions taking part in this year's SA SBK series with NGK spark plugs and Bridgestone tyres is Clint Seller. He was the pre-season favourite, as it turned out, because he'd been winning for the last 45 years in South African national racing. The first two rounds at Swartkorps this year have proved a bit more than difficult for Clint Seller. Started off the year pretty well. The first round, I think Clint Seller found that it wasn't going to be as easy as he thought it might be. Clint Seller, great to catch up with you. Those first two rounds this time around showed that the racing is a lot closer than we expected.
Absolutely. I think, you always come in and we came off as champions last year. We were hoping to obviously come out first race and show everyone a clean pair of heels, but didn't work like that. I ended up lying in the gravel trap in the first heat. But it's quite cool because there's a new dynamic, with the Bridgestone tyres, completely new to all the riders. I think one or two guys have a little bit of experience. And, with all the changes in the series, NGK spark plugs coming on, it's actually a lot more media than we've had for so many years. Everything becomes so much more intense and takes so much more of your time. I was, in essence, a bit unprepared for that first round. But for me, what felt the first round to me was round two, which, at least I won that one. So, hoping to obviously maintain a bit of momentum and keep going forward from there.
Clint, you're a bit different to the other guys that we've spoken to about their careers. You came from a karting background initially.
Yes, yeah. So I actually started out doing a bit of motocross with my dad. In fact, Leroy Poulter and the Poulter family were my trainers when I was a kid. I only went to nursery school for half a day because I was at the motocross track in the morning. And then my dad got sick of his car being dirty every weekend. So we went go-karting, which many years of go-karting, few running up in front. Never won an SA title there, won a few regionals, I think, but never an SA one. And my dad always wanted me to be a car racer. That was his goal, car racing, Formula One like we all dream. But I remember watching bikes like Rob Portman and Aaron Brown and Bo Levy and those guys riding at the kart circuit the same day as we were practicing and thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this go-kart thing, this is what I want to do. And took a lot of convincing to my dad, but eventually I eventually spoke to Noddy and got a few people, and I actually ended up getting a Suzuki all those years back. And I think it was an ex-Greg Dreyer write-off bike that he scribbled.
How many has he written off?
Greg Dreyer, there's not enough fingers. Definitely you don't have enough fingers, Dave. But so it was an ex-write-off Greg Dreyer bike, and that was my first race bike. Came in and I led my first race, and then I rode the bike off. And and that was it. From then on, I just kept saying, this is what I want to do. This is where I found like a passion instead of just a little bit of success, actually something that you wanted to do. And that's how the road racing started for me, yeah.
Quick little story here. Somebody said to me one day, there's this kid who's doing road racing now. His name's Clint Seller. And I knew your dad, of course. And you've got to watch this kid. He's really fast out there. Came along to one of the races and we watched you. And I think Two Wheels TV was your first official sponsor.
Yeah, that was it. It was Two Wheels TV. You're right. I remember the phone call. I was all excited when my dad phoned and said, Dave wants to sponsor you, Two Wheels TV. So you did right. That was my first sticker on my race bike that wasn't my dad's company.
We paid you about 30 Rand a race, so it was good money, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great money back then. Sometimes more than we get now, yeah.
And then it moved on a wee bit. Obviously racing in South Africa made it to national level. And it was kind of the hotbed of the racing at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. From a small team, I moved to Creepy Crawley Suzuki, which was my first sort of free ride, if I can say that. There was no bills or anything of that nature. And then moved to your brother's team, Robbie Peterson, and moved into him when Shares went overseas. And it was my first ride where I got a little bit of money. It was like a whole new world. Didn't know why anyone would ever have a normal job. But moved on, and I think Nationals was really strong then in terms of the grid. The grid was strong. There were guys going overseas and coming back, and there was good competition. For me, that was a really important part of my career because Robbie was the first person to take me to a gym. I kind of just always rode on a bit of talent. I think I weighed 90 kilos and had the most fun at every party after every race. And Robbie, when he signed me on, was that I had to go to the gym and I had to train with him. So I remember Broadacres Gym, going there and Robbie training me and thinking I'll never be able to do this stuff. And that was it. And I lost 20 kilos, I think it was. Yeah, 20, 25 kilos with training with Robbie and just really focused into, I can do this. I won when I was a bit of a fatty. So, what can I do when I'm really focused? And I think we saw that by middle of that year, I started to be the most winning rider in the series, which was quite cool.
Then you set your sights overseas because the American series is what was attracting you at the time. I presume you thought of America because, first of all, the language, the food, was like home from home, really. But you kind of worked them up straight away in America, didn't you?
Yeah, it was also Robbie, Robbie guiding as well. I mean, Robbie had a strong career in the US as well. And for me, big fan of Matt Mladen, despite recent recent hearings. But, big fan of Matt Mladen, Ben Spies as well. So to me, it was always a place. I never really thought World Championship, I don't think I ever really thought even going a World Championship route. So it was always to go to the US. And got in with Chuck Graves and the factory Yamaha team as such. My first outing was actually with Josh Hayes' wife had fallen and broken her leg, and I'd met Josh traveling over there, trying to get a ride in previous, and he was like this real cool guy that invited me to his house when he had spoken to 5 minutes. I still was a bit creeped out. I thought, why is this dude inviting me to his house? I didn't know him, but he was really cool and got me into cycling and things. And phoned me up. Oddly enough, it was like a weird time in my life. My mum had just had a stroke from cancer, and he phoned me up that afternoon. My mum had a stroke in the morning and phoned me up that afternoon and said, hey, next weekend, do you want to come race in America? And I looked at my dad. We were standing next to each other in the hospital, and he said, tell him, of course, we're going racing. He said, your mum would have wanted it. And it was like a really weird time, and went there first race and actually qualified pole. And then, the team were cheating on the fuel. And I didn't know that as a rider. I was just riding, I think they'd never been in the top 30. And they got caught with scallum fuel. And then I got put to the back of the grid and ended up 10th. But very cool weekend. And it sort of, put me into the Chuck Graves and his team's eyes that next year, honestly, we had to pay a bit of money, but I got a really good ride. And that sort of was the leg in the door there as such. But yeah, difficult, not an easy formula, not an easy series, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot as a person as well, which is cool.
Then you came back to South Africa having learned all of that and then started really dominating whatever you entered in this country.
Yes, yeah, I actually, I guess any rider that comes back, you just think you're going to win straight away. And I remember my first race, I was supposed to ride the Superbike and the 600 that weekend. And the Superbike, I think it kind of got disallowed. It wasn't meeting the rule criteria. So we focused just on the 600. And I just assumed I'd win. I qualified pole, and I was like, of course I'm going to win. And I remember 3 laps from the end, this dude, David McFadden, who I've never heard of in my whole life, didn't even know who he was, passed me and won the race. And I was still like, I don't know who this guy is. And a little bit of awakening. And I think the first 2 races I got beaten, and then started to get to grips with it a little bit. And first year I came second in the championship, really close, and then from then on had a really good run of championships. Yeah, so quite a few in a row.
Always struck me that you're one of these guys who's just not afraid of pushing it to the limit. And if you crash, you crash, and it never seems to really bother you. Some riders have a crash and it takes them a while to come back. It's almost like you get a bit of a wake up and then get back out there and go even faster. Yeah,
it has been that way. I must be honest, I don't think about crashing. I just, I think years ago, from go-karts, you just attack the racetrack, whatever it is. And, sometimes I attack too hard and I go a little bit too far and crash bikes quite hard. But, I think for me, that's been the process of learning. Certainly now that it's my own team, I do think about it a little bit more. It is, now the bikes, Dave, as you know, the bikes are, when all's said and done and you built one of these bikes up, it's nearing R1 million almost. It's mind-boggling how expensive it is. So definitely now I do think about that a little bit more, but trying to obviously balance the risk and the desire to win. That's probably, I've always said I'll retire when not winning becomes an okay thing, and that hasn't happened just yet, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned you've got your own team, the King Price team for this year, and you've got your Dragon energy drinks along with you. This year, as I said earlier, we spoke about the first 2 races. Unfortunately, we've had to halt the racing as it is, but I still think we have the potential of having probably the best superbike series in a long, long time in this country.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, from my point of view, you know, I invest so much time, and my sponsors, King Price, Fire It Up, Liqui Moly, Dragon, they put so much money into building this race team up with me, and you know, the way the formula has been and superbike racing in the past has been a challenge to sell. Whereas this year has been a lot easier in the sense that, you know, the series has got sponsors like NGK, you know, which have come along and bolstered not only the TV time, but the general look of the formula. You know, you got Bridgestone tires, which are, you know, guys that are going into their own pocket to put us on top end tires, as well as give us good advertising opportunities. So for me, this year has been probably the most positive I've seen SA Superbike racing in 6 or 7 years. It really is, you know, a place where the media side of things, the sponsorship side of things, the social media side of things have been a step above what it's been in years. And you know, I was quite excited because we were building momentum. Obviously, no one saw this one coming, and that we were going to be sitting at home. But having said that, you know, the social media side of both King Price Extreme Racing and Seller Racing are still increasing week by week, day by day.
Well, let's look forward to the rest of the year, Clint. It's been great catching up with you. Before we say goodbye to you, a couple of little questions. In South Africa, you've raced against some of the top guys, let's face it. Who do you rate as probably your hardest competitor that you've come across in this country?
The hardest guy I've ever come across is Matthew Scholz. Yeah, I would say that's the hardest guy that ground me into the ground every single race that we raced against each other. He's just really fit, really strong, and fast. You know, so for me, he was the guy. Yeah, that I would say is probably the hardest I've ever been up against.
You've raced on some great tracks around the world. Your favourite track, first of all, I guess in America or overseas, and your favourite track in South Africa?
America favourite track would be Infineon or Sonoma Raceway. It's all different types of names depending on who you're talking to, but that one for me is really probably the favourite. Lots of undulation, which is not what we have here, so it was really new for me. And then in the overseas world endurance racing, I would probably say Sepang, which was the last endurance race I did, but just so different to what we have here. And then locally, probably Cape Town. Probably say Cape Town. It's bumpy, it's crazy, it's fast, but always lots of people, and I don't think I've ever had a boring race there. It's always been bar bashing into the last corner, so that's always quite fun.
Clint, great talking to you. Hope we get back on the track real soon, and good luck to your team and all of the people around you. Look forward to seeing you out there.
Thanks, Simon. Appreciate it. Cheers, guys.